What's up, everyone? I am making some beef ribs today, and so I went and bought some short ribs. I just didn't have them cut them. So right now what I'm doing before I get going too far is I am trimming some of the silver skin and some of the like hard fats that are on here so that it cooks right. So before I started recording, I trimmed off silver skin that was right here, and now I am moving on to the harder fat here. So a lot of this kind of lifts up. When you're trying to trim these, you want the fat that you do see on here to be more of a soft, spongy kind of feel, not so much the hard stuff. It just doesn't cook right. So that is what we're doing right now. Obviously, we want to preserve as much of the meat as possible, so be very careful with what you're doing, and to not get too much of the meat when you're trimming all this stuff off. Got a big chunk there. Just like your mom's big chunk. Got him. When you're cooking these, I know right now it seems like there's not too much meat on them. If you notice, whenever you see beef ribs, especially when they're slow cooked, they almost look like this mound of meat on top. So what happens is, as you're cooking the meat, it begins to, which is why we do it low and slow, as the meat begins to pull away from the edges and collect in the middle, creating this amazing mound of beef. So now that we've gotten all of the hard fat chunks on the top, just gonna check the bottom. Usually with these, you would want to, you can remove this bottom layer here. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do that or not yet. It all depends on how you want it to cook. This usually kind of protects the bottom as it's cooking, so I may leave it on. We'll come back to that later. It's not the same as the membrane on the pork ribs, because it doesn't really get eaten once this is done anyways. So all the meat again pulls out from the bottom, so most likely wouldn't be needing to eat anything from the underside. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this seasoned. So for today, we are going to be using, instead of Louisiana hot sauce, I decided I'm going to use Terry Black's hot sauce. It's got a lot of really good flavors in it. And this is going to be our binder for today. So again, binder is just something that is going to allow the seasonings that we're going to use to stick. So don't need a ton, just need enough so that I can cover. Okay, so now that's done. Today I decided that we're just gonna go the classic salt and pepper. but no shipping.
What?
We are gonna go with salt first. Again, this is I typically go with salt first because it's easier to make sure that I have a good even coat. Because we're not gonna be putting much of like anything else, it's okay if we put a good helping of salt on here. We don't want to overdo it, but we do want to make sure that there is plenty. Again, I'm using kosher salt as it is a much better salt to use to cook with. And I'm just using regular ground black pepper. I got this from Trader Joe's. Nothing fancy there. Make sure you get all the sides. All right. Okay. This is still just a little bit too cold to put on just yet, so while we're letting this come down in temperature, I'm gonna go ahead and get the grill prepped. We're gonna be smoking at 250 degrees. And I haven't decided the timing yet for the wrapped versus unwrapped time, but we are gonna go unwrapped first for at least 2 hours, and then we'll probably wrap it for the remaining 3 to 4. And I did get some butcher paper so that it holds in the moisture without creating too much heat inside, which is where aluminum foil sometimes can be too much. So, all right, so I just put the ribs on. We're gonna let it cook for probably around 6 or 7 hours. We'll come back and check on it periodically as we go. Coming back to baste it and make sure that there's plenty of moisture inside here so that these cook properly. We don't want the ends or really any of the outside edges to get too crunchy. So we'll be back in a little bit. So it has been 3.5 out of the potentially 7 hours of smoking. So we're gonna open this up. We're gonna do some basting. We're gonna close it back in. Those are looking really good. So again, the point of all of this is so that we can keep the edges from getting too hard, because we want as much juicy tenderness as possible. So I'm going with my normal apple cider vinegar, and I also have a little bit of the Terry Black's hot sauce that I used earlier as the binder. So it has been about 6 hours, and I've been basting every so often. Right now I'm gonna do a little test here to see if it is almost ready. And it doesn't look like it's quite ready yet. So one of the things you can do to test to see if it's how close it is to being ready is you use some kind of like metal probe or something. You see how easily it Right now, it is still a little bit too tough right here. It's not going through as smoothly as this side, which goes in very, very easily. You want to poke it, have it, see if it can go through the membrane. Almost there, but the coloring looks amazing, and I am very excited to be able to eat this.
We wrapped the ribs, and now I have to sit for 1 hour. And also, Nina said when it's nighttime, we can roast some marshmallows today. The marshmallows! The marshmallows!
All right, it has been sitting for 1 hour. Now it's time to unwrap and cut into these ribs. Oh yeah. All right. Moment of truth. Ooh, nice and juicy. We have a winner.
Did you taste it?
Nope.
Okay, go.
So, clean bone, mostly.
You want David, do you want to be the taste tester?